So to all of these students, the reason that we are here today is, folks like Representative Jakes and others who are in the legislature, and folks like Secretary Murphy, who leads the Department of Education. There are a lot of adults who make a lot of decisions about what happens in schools. Now, most importantly, those decisions get made by people like our school leaders, our principals, and our superintendents. But there are some decisions that are made not, William Penn as opposed to Christiana or McCain. And there are some decisions that are not just made, you got Colonial, and you got Christina, and you got Red Clay and Brandywine and Cesar Rodney and a total of 19 school districts in the state. But there are some decisions that are made statewide. And so what we're really here to talk about today are some of those statewide decisions. And importantly, they're the kinds of decisions, what grade are you guys all in? Junior. You're all juniors? So juniors and seniors. So this will have a bigger impact on students who are a little bit younger. But I think Dr. Erskine thought it would be a good idea for you all to sort of hear what we're talking about, because if you're interested in education and education policy, the kinds of things we're talking about today will be the kinds of things you're going to be dealing with in a few years when you're actually in the classroom teaching. So that's why we are here. I think that's why you're invited. So earlier this year, I set a goal for the state where I said by 2025, 65% of our workforce would earn a college degree or a professional certificate, because we know that 65% of our jobs require education beyond high school. But today, only 40% of our workers in Delaware have an education beyond high school. And so the good jobs require education beyond high school. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 4-year or a 2-year, but it certainly is going to require some kind of ongoing training and the like. And we also set as a goal that by 2025, everybody would earn a high school diploma, and everybody would graduate ready for a college or career. And Dr. Erskine was sharing with me, and I think it's really encouraging, he was talking about the graduation rate right here at William Penn being on a pretty good growth. And I asked him why, and his answer, which is something that I believe in my heart, and we hadn't talked about it before, but he said he believes that William Penn is making what you learn in school a lot more relevant to what you want to do with the rest of your lives. That's pretty close to what you said, right? Yeah, but I think that's true. And I think, historically we've had a lot of kids who have dropped out, not because they're not intelligent, but because they just think that what they're learning in school is not really relevant to what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And I think one of the reasons that you've come up with these various, the 19 different, career paths here is for that very, very reason. So I think this goal of everybody getting a high school diploma and everybody, having ongoing training beyond that is something that we can rally everybody behind. Students, families, teachers, administrators, people in the business community, in the labor community, workers, members of the General Assembly, and others. And at a time when how successfully you're going to be able to pursue economic opportunities in the future is very much tied to the education you've gotten, and whether or not we are able to build a strong middle class is dependent upon how well we do with education. We believe this is absolutely the right linkage, and we really think this is probably the most important thing. We have a lot of students across the country and students in Delaware who grow up in poverty, and we think that the most important thing that we can do to give them a chance of escaping that poverty is allowing them to get a great education. And so this has been a huge area of focus. But the issue, and we call this, by the way, we call this our Delaware Promise, but the challenge is that if you realize too late in a student's career that they're falling behind, then it makes it much more difficult for them to catch up. And that's what happens to too many people. That's what happens to too many students, and it's a particular challenge for our highest need students when we don't measure their progress with clear and understandable assessments. Now, this is why civil rights groups, and Debbie Wilson is here from the Metropolitan Wilmington Urban League. The Urban League is one of the premier groups focused on civil rights in the country. It's been around for how long? 100? Yeah, it's been around for 105 years, and it's got an incredible track record and reputation as being a group that looks out for the interests of the minority community, African Americans in particular, not exclusively, but for people, frankly, who oftentimes historically have fallen through the cracks. And this is why folks like the Urban League have been among the most vocal advocates for statewide assessments. And this is a really important thing for folks to understand. And we realize, by the way, that standardized tests are not exactly beloved, but they are still our most effective method in terms of identifying the students that need our help and ensuring that none of our students fall through the cracks. And it is most often poor students, it is most often minority students across the country for decades now who have not received the education they need, but they're not the only ones who fall behind when we don't effectively measure how they're doing. Now, this is a very timely moment for us to be having this conversation. In the spring, like now, we are shifting to a new state assessment. It's called Smarter Balanced. And it's aligned with the expectations that we have set for our students to be college ready and to be career ready. And in the meantime, we have heard from parents, and we've certainly heard from teachers who are concerned about the amount of time that is spent on testing and how those tests are ultimately used. And we are here because the increased attention around these assessments has really provided us what we think is an important opportunity to take a careful look at all of the testing requirements in our schools. And the fact that assessments play an important role in supporting our students means that we have to invest the time and the resources into getting them right. And when we do that, the impact is clear. And every day we see the value of these assessments. It happens when a teacher meets individually with the child to review why his or her scores may have fallen. We see the value of assessments and other data in our professional learning communities. And every teacher here at William Penn and throughout the state spends 45 or 90 minutes a week sitting down with their peers to understand what these data about student performance is telling them. It allows them to identify students that are struggling in certain areas, and they discuss which lesson plans may be working better than others. And I've watched teachers in these settings discuss new ways to help students, whether it's dividing fractions in elementary school or determine which worksheets work best for a particular area. And these conversations are very valuable, and they would not be possible without the data and the information that our tests provide. So, while these effective tests are vital, ineffective and unnecessary tests don't provide students or educators or parents with valuable information, and they take away valuable teaching time. So at the state level, I mentioned a moment ago, we're switching to this new assessment. It's called Smarter Balanced, and that's only going to be given once a year, and it's going to take less time in total than DCAS, which was our previous assessment. That was offered up to 3 times a year for a total of 12 to 15 hours. And while Smarter Balanced is more thorough, it'll actually cut the testing time by up to 7 hours. And it'll take well under 1% of school hours per year. It's also a better assessment than that which has been used before. For the first time, we're going to be testing critical thinking and writing ability. These are 2 of the most important skills that you all can learn, and it's also incredibly important for you to be successful in the future. That's instead of just asking you to fill in bubbles, like multiple choice bubbles. So I don't think anybody should be mistaken. These tests are going to be more difficult than what has been given in the past, but they're going to do a better job of measuring students' progress toward college and career. And that's really important because a lot of our students across the country, and it's true in Delaware as well, a lot of our students, when they get to higher education, end up having to take remedial classes. And that's not a great use of your time, and it's something that we really want to improve on. We obviously think that you ought to be prepared for the next steps before you graduate. You shouldn't be told that you're ready only to find out after the fact that you're not. And this is a situation across the country. Now, for all of the reasons I've discussed, the vast majority of teachers and parents I've talked to are supportive of the move to smarter balance, but there's also a small but vocal group that is advocating for students to opt out of required tests. And I believe that this push for opting out is unproductive, and I think it's unfair to our young people. Our educators, our school leaders, our parents, and for that matter, our students deserve the information they need to understand how individuals, students are doing. And they deserve a consistent way to track and to compare the progress of students throughout the state and ensure they're on track to be ready for college or career. And I think opting out would deny our schools a full picture of their students' progress, and those who don't take the test would be denied the opportunity to receive additional support. Students could fall through the cracks. And that's why the principals and teachers and administrators I speak with, along with civil rights groups like the Urban League in Delaware and across America, are strongly opposed to this opt-out movement and support the universal statewide annual assessments to make sure our students are learning and getting the help they need. Now, at the same time, educators are expressing concerns with how the new test is going to impact their personal evaluations as smarter balance is integrated fully into our schools. And this is why last year our Department of Education worked to ensure that smarter balanced results would play no role in evaluations this year. But a number of legislators, including Senator Brian Townsend, who was here earlier, Representative Sean Lynn, Representative Kim Williams, and you're going to be hearing in a few minutes from Representative Jakes, but a number of legislators have engaged a broad group from the education community to ask for an extension. The federal government has certain requirements around the use of these tests as one of many components in a teacher evaluation system. And in the coming days, I am committed to engaging with the U.S. Department of Education and our legislators to develop a positive path forward that will address our educators' concerns while ensuring our state's commitment to higher standards and strong assessments. We need to do more than address only tests required by the state. The majority of testing is done at the local level. And so we should also evaluate all of the required assessments in Delaware schools, including those mandated by districts and individual schools. Some local tests may repeat the purpose of statewide exams. Many have been on the books for years and may have outlived their usefulness, but administrators may not have had the time or the resources to really gauge how effective they are. So today, I'm announcing what we're calling a statewide testing inventory. The state is going to work with districts to identify and evaluate assessments that are required at the state level, at the district level, and at the school level. Each district is going to receive funding and technical support for this review. So the goal, here's the bottom line of this goal, it's to eliminate repetitive and ineffective assessments, to reduce the testing burden on students and teachers, and to increase the available time for teaching. And Secretary Murphy's just going to talk about this in a moment. So let me close with this. In my State of the State address, I told the story of a young man who initially struggled in high school as he cared for a mom with disabilities and for a younger sister in Wilmington. And like all of our students, he had a lot of ability, but like so many, he needed some extra help along the way to realize what he could achieve. His teachers saw that he had incredible potential, but he was struggling in his classes. And with targeted support from his teachers, he turned his grades around. He's pursuing a degree in radiology after earning one of the SEED scholarships. And if we want our schools to have the chance to identify and to provide the best support to students like him, our teachers need effective and efficient ways to see who is struggling with which skills. And we can't do that if we're not properly measuring our students' abilities and comparing it with the progress we hope they'll make. Assessments are always going to be, and when you get into the classroom, if you continue your path on education, assessments are going to continue to be an important part of the learning process. Our educators, our students, their parents all deserve the benefits of effective assessments that show when students are excelling and that show when students need extra support. But at the same time, tests that don't add anything to the learning process mean less time for students to engage in their education itself. So we are committed to finding the right balance, and this initiative is an important part of the process, and I look forward to seeing the results as we strive to improve the assessments that we offer while reducing testing time and increasing teaching time in our classrooms.